Here we go. Hi, everybody. This is Steve from the WellnessWarrior.coach. This is our end of the detox meeting. Just so the purpose of today's talk is so you know where to go from here. I don't want you to lose all this good momentum that you started with. I want you to continue to learn. I think a lot of you have learned some stuff about yourself, about how your body works this week, but I also want you to continue that throughout the next couple weeks. So this is really the end of the 5-day detox. And the most important thing is that to say is congratulations, you made it. You lasted 5 days, and really congratulate yourself just because you were really focused on your health and wellness for 5 whole days. A lot of people can't last even 12 hours worrying about their health and wellness. And yeah, please give yourself some love, give yourself a hug, pat yourself on the back. If you had some family members also do this detox with you, give them a pat on the back as well, because it's a big thing. All right, so you might be wondering what's going to happen next. So like I said, the purpose of today is to figure out what you can do, what else you can figure out about yourself, and keep that momentum going forward. Some of you reported that you still have a lot of food left over, so maybe this detox is going to last you even another 3 or 4 days moving forward. So that is awesome. I know when we do a detox, we always have food left over as well. So we do the same thing. Keep it going for another 3, 4, sometimes 5 days. All right. So hopefully by today, you're really feeling great. You really have paid attention how your feelings have changed from Monday to Friday. Some of you reported having a lot more energy. Some of you reported that you slept a lot better. You're in better spirits. That doesn't make sense. Spirits. Your body might even feel different. Some things you may not have shared that people have told me on the side before is that their bowel movements are a lot more regular. So maybe that happened for you as well. So, and again, it's only 5 short days. So you gave yourself 5 days break from whatever you're eating before and transitioned it to the detox for this week. So let's talk about how to safely reintroduce these foods that you've really taken out of your diet for the last 5 days. So the 3 big things that if you've noticed, maybe you didn't notice, that's great if you didn't, but you probably did. Most of the harmful grains that our country produces, dairy and sugar were the 3 big things that were removed from this particular detox. And as we go through today, don't forget, I ask you to make some intentions for the week. Hopefully you can reflect back on those, what you decided, what you really wanted to get out of it, and maybe you're surprised on what you actually did get out of it. Maybe it was totally different than what you originally had expected. All right, so what do I recommend that you do next? All right, you're going to do what you want to do, obviously, but you should really gradually reintroduce these 3 super inflammatory foods into your diet if you're going to do that. Like I said, those 3 things are dairy, gluten, and sugar. So add them back one at a time. If you decide to add gluten into your diet first, then do that for 3 days, and then keep everything else the same that you did this week and see what happens. All right. If you start getting bloated, you have a runny nose, you have your digestive system really turns to the negative, try cutting out that gluten again. You're probably sensitive to it. In my personal opinion, I think about 99.9% of us have a gluten sensitivity, and or I'm going to preface this by saying or because there's a lot of Roundup that gets delivered with stuff that we eat with gluten, so could have a sensitivity to gluten, or you could have a sensitivity and gut dysbiosis just from the Roundup that you're getting from these processed glutinous foods. So keep that in mind. Same thing for dairy. If you want to start with dairy, take 3 days for that. Do you notice bloating? Do you notice a runny nose? Do you notice digestive distress? If you do, then you're probably sensitive to dairy as well. There's some caveats to dairy. There's 2 different types of casein from different animals that people are either sensitive to. Usually they're sensitive to one type of casein rather than the other, but some people are just can't handle any of it. Asian Americans tend to be casein and lactose intolerant just because they really didn't have that in their culture for thousands of years. So they didn't develop those digestive enzymes to take care of those things. All right, so some other signs to look for just in case you're thinking of other things is like achy joints. People don't realize, they just think they're getting old and they have achy joints, but a lot of times that's from inflammation from sugar, from gluten, and from dairy. All right, so you got to think about that when you reintroduce these things as well. Sometimes people get puffy from these things. Like I said, digestive distress or even just belly pain, especially from gluten. So pay attention to those things when you do add those back in. A lot of people never think that they're sensitive to anything because they've never taken it out of their diet. They just deal with all these things. They just think it's from something else, but it's not from those. It is from those things. But they don't realize that their quality of life could be so much better if they didn't have these things in there. I think some of you experienced how good you felt with not having these things in your diet. Another thing to really be mindful of when you add these things in is, how is your energy and mood after you eat these things? After you have gluten, how do you feel hour, 2 hours, 3 hours afterwards? When you reintroduce dairy, how do you feel an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours after? Because I think a lot of people eat these things, they feel fine when they're eating them, and then 2 hours later they don't feel very good, or they're sleepy or whatever, and they don't relate that back to their food. So be mindful when you introduce these things, that what symptoms you have as a result. Okay, and they might be minor. Even if they're minor, that doesn't mean that you're not allergic to it. It could just mean that you're less sensitive to it. So keep that in mind. If you decided to wean yourself off of coffee this week, I'm not anti-coffee. I drink coffee every day, 2 cups, in fact. I put a lot of stuff in my coffee, but that is a discussion for a different podcast or different webinar. So we will talk about that probably in the near future rather than the distant future. But again, pay attention to yourself. I had a graph on when I talked about sleep that talked about the half-life of caffeine and how it varies between 5 hours and 10 hours, how long it takes caffeine to break down in your body. So if you're having caffeine with dinner and it takes 10 hours for half of it to break down and eat dinner at 6, all right, there's still a lot of caffeine in your system at 4 o'clock in the morning when some of us are getting ready to start the next day. All right, so people have troubles falling asleep because they just have this half-life of caffeine that's still in them because they drink it too late. That is a tough habit to break. I've had a client that would sit down with their family after dinner and have a cup of coffee. All right. He didn't realize how bad his sleep was until he took the coffee away at night, and then he got a lot better sleep. So it's just one example. So that's all about the reintroduction part of it. So moving back into your regular life, I would like you, and some of you have already mentioned that you're going to keep some of these things in your life, but think about a couple of those habits that you did this week that you hadn't tried before. Maybe it was Epsom salt baths. Maybe it was hot lemon in your water. I know at least one person tried apple cider vinegar in their water. All right. Maybe it's having a big pile of leafy greens in the middle of the day. Whatever it is, try to pick one of those habits to latch onto and continue, throughout, the next, few months or however long you can keep it going for. So a lot of this stuff is working on your behavior change. And once it's easier to change something that's small and carry it forward than try to make a whole bunch of changes together. Some people are able to make changes like full Monty, all of them together. But for the most part, people need gradual change. And then on the flip side of that, think about keeping one of those bad habits that you had before out of your life. Maybe it was eating those foods that don't agree with you. Excuse me. Maybe it was like grabbing a handful of candy. Maybe it was going to bed later. Maybe it was sleeping on the couch at night instead of going to your bed. Whatever it is, see if you can pick up one good habit and then try to knock down one of those bad habits. So that'd be 2 habits. So you start snowballing these things together. And then over a series of months, then you can really make some really significant changes in your life. All right. So I've heard in the past that some people wonder, can I eat like this all the time? Certainly, you can keep eating like this forever. This is pretty much the way that I eat for the most part. I do have a little more red meat than what's in this plan, but for the most part, those are the kind of things that I've eaten over the long term. Now, it's been like that for maybe 4 years, a little bit looser for the last 11 years. But for the 11 years, I pretty much cleaned up my diet and I'm just living like this. Once you're on the bandwagon, then I never even feel tempted to hop off. But I am a lot further into the journey than most people. All right. So as far as supplements goes, I talked a little bit about that at the beginning. And if you decided to pick up some of those supplements, just routinely have your blood levels checked by your doctor just to see if you are taking the appropriate dose for you. Just because it says it on the bottle doesn't mean it is high enough for you. For instance, vitamin D, I take a lot more vitamin D than is recommended by anybody. Well, not everybody, but most doctors. And I've seen my vitamin D levels increase over the last 11 years from off the scale on the bottom to I'm just about on the middle of the scale right now. So I still have supplements is a whole different thing and blood tests are a whole different thing, but I'll cut to that a little bit. Just because you fall under the normal range of some of these blood tests doesn't mean it's the optimal range. There's definitely a difference. Probably going to work on getting some more education on that. I mean, you can't know everything, but looking at blood work as far as the best range for human existence compared to, what's enough vitamin C so you don't get scurvy or, so you don't get rickets or whatever. All right. That's basically, for the most part, what a lot of the federal recommendations are all about, so you don't get these diseases that can be fixed by low-level vitamin dosages. So that's something to definitely talk about with your doctor as you get blood tests and you continue to take those things. Milk thistle. If you decide to take milk thistle, I would do that periodically. That's not one of these things that you take and you just continue to take indefinitely. Milk thistle can lose its effectiveness over time if you continue to take it. So I only take it during detox weeks. So that's 4 weeks a year, basically, just to help that detoxification system while I'm doing the detox. You could probably take it maybe 1 week a month, but do what you want on that one, but definitely don't take it as a long-term supplement. Definitely don't. You might need to do it, but it loses its effectiveness if you continue to take that too long. All right, so the next thing, I just want to review one of the other things that we talked about. Really pay attention to your body when you go back to eating these things. If you do go back to eating those things, slowly introduce each one of those things. If you choose to reintroduce all 3 of those things, those are the 3 top inflammatory foods that are in our standard American diet. Like I said before, I have so many people that I train that say, oh, it's just these aches and pains from, old age, or, these are just, one guy says, so these are old man noises or old man creaks and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, it doesn't have to be that way. Eat the right things and you won't have as much inflammation. All right. So I don't know about you, but cutting out those 3 foods for this 5 days, I know at least 1 or 2 people said it wasn't really that hard. So, long term, this is something that's definitely something that you can definitely carry on. I give talks I'm going to be giving talks on Monday nights that talk about the nuances of each area or disease or whatever. So if you want to tune into those, please do so. All right. So moving from here and using this as a tool to address some of your overall health goals is really important. Maybe you've never had any health goals. Maybe you've just thought about, oh, I should be living healthier, but maybe you need to actually write out, what do I want to be feeling, doing, and how I want my body to be functioning, and write it down on paper so you can strive to those things. That's basically what I do as a health and wellness coach. I help people, figure out this whole misinformational mess that's on the internet. For a lot of people say always consult Dr. Google first, but really, if you don't know the really good sources of information, Dr. Google can tell you absolutely anything that you want to hear. All right. Dr. Google will say, the vegan diet's the best. Well, it might be for some people, but it might not be for other people. I mean, there's how many people in this world? 7 billion or whatever. None of them are the same. So we can't really prescribe one particular thing for a particular group of people. There's some broad generalizations, but nothing set in stone says, if you're like this, then you definitely should eat that, because that's definitely not the case. And looking into your blood chemistry is, the next step to really take a deeper dive into your health and wellness. So, like I said at the beginning, really congratulate yourself for going through 5 days of this detox. For some people, it was a bigger stretch than for other people because maybe they didn't eat as much of these things in their diet. Some people may have a lot of this stuff in their diet. I know people that just eat fast food all the time. So if they went from fast food to a detox diet, they would definitely have headaches and gastrointestinal distress and stuff like that. So again, celebrate your victories for this week. I'd like you to shoot me an email of all those things that you noticed about yourself, and even a week down the road, as you do the reintroduction process, if you choose to do that, how has your body changed from getting those, I call them poisonous things, and putting them back in your system? What was that doing? And we didn't even talk about industrial oils, the oils that are really bad for you. So, but that's another thing that you didn't even have this week, because none of those bad oils were in any of those foods that were presented in any of those recipes that that you were presented with for this week. So awesome. So if you have any questions, please make sure that you reach out. Everybody that was on the detox has my email address. Most of you have my phone number, so please use that. I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to send this recording out to those people that were not able to be here today. Super valuable information, a little bit shorter than the first one, but definitely lays the groundwork on how to proceed from this 5 days. And you only have, if you listen to this recording right away, there's only like 5.5 hours to make day number 5, which is awesome. So it's actually going to be 5.5 days, because by the time you get up, it's almost another half a day. All right. This is Steve, the Wellness Warrior, WellnessWarrior.coach. I'm here to help you. And I also I do a different detox each quarter. So if you need a general reset or you want to try some new things, each quarter is always different, and it has seasonal foods in it that are a little bit more accessible in each of the seasons, that you can find in the grocery store a little bit easier. All right. This is Steve, the Wellness Warrior, signing off. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube. Good night.